So we find out the mysterious figure that's been bugging Toriko the last couple of chapters is none other than Grinpatch, the vice chef of Gourmet Corp. Kind of reminds me of Grimlock from Transformers. Toriko, Gourmet number 62, new weapons. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the hungry-ass Toriko Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on another mouth-watering, appetite-inducing, straw-bending, fork-and-knife-flying chapter of Toriko. Our last chapter, the last couple actually, of course, saw us with this mysterious figure with the four arms, and that was able to just kind of suck everything up through a straw and then kind of redisperse it. And he's just sort of a gross fellow. The last chapter at the end of the last volume, and as a matter of fact, here we are diving into volume 8, which is nice. That chapter really left off with Toriko, kind of saying, hey, listen, I'm not really doing any damage to this guy, and I need to evolve my fork and knife. It's part of the kind of the evolution that we saw at the end of the Mammoth arc. So that's where the chapter left off. This one picks up right there, and it's actually kind of cool because Toriko and this fellow who we find out later on at the end of the chapter, his name is Grinpatch. He winds up, he has some distance apart from him, and he knows that that's Toriko's weakness, is that he has no distance attacks. So he's just kind of like going to pick him off, obviously, from a distance and not even have to get in close. Now, Toriko knows that he has to evolve, and it's kind of cool because he is able to evolve, and he winds up doing it almost immediately, and he's like, here, take my fork! And he goes and fires his hand out, and now he actually has, like, a flying fork. That's what he names it. I know, very original, but ultimately the fork missile or the I'll fork you up or whatever you want to call it, this is forking awesome. It can fly, flying fork of doom. Any other name that you'd like to insert in there would definitely be better than just flying fork. But nonetheless, he is able to use that, and then we see right after that he's able to actually go and then do a slash, and go knife. And when he swings his hand down, it actually fires out like this beam of energy that comes out, and he winds up actually cutting, slicing into Grinpatch, and Grinpatch goes and then he goes, and just the gross mother person that he is, he just goes and sucks up the blood or what have you, and just kind of heals, seals up the wound, and he's just like, he's like, your knife though, Toriko, is more like a butter knife. It doesn't even cut rock. And they show the flat plateau-like, I don't know what you want to call them, flattened cookie-like rocks that he's standing on top of. You can see that it's just barely scratched the surface of, And Toriko's thinking in his head, yeah, I do need to definitely get stronger with those attacks before they're actually, they're not really anything of consequence right now. I've got to kind of work on them and evolve them and train and use them and everything else. And I kind of like that as well, So then Grinpatch goes and he's like, oh, how about this? And he's like, how about missile? And he's like, blows into his little magic straw, just this huge, just abomination of whatever the hell it is that he's blowing out, goes flying across at Toriko, right? And the next thing you know, you go and you see a couple of panels, and it was really drawn very cool. I had to read it again to figure out what the hell happened. And all of a sudden, Toriko is like behind Grinpatch, and he goes and he's just like, knife! And he goes and hits his straw, and this time it's cool because he winds up actually cutting off the end of it. What cuts it at about the middle, but he breaks off the end of it, and his knife actually does make a dent in and cuts through the straw. So we can already see the evolution and obviously the strength and the kind of power levels of him going up as far as with this particular move. And it was really neat because Grinpatch is like, how you be doing that, Toriko? And that's how I picture him talking, because he kind of talks backwards. He's like, hey, oh, hooray, Toriko. But he's like, how you be doing that, did you skip across the rocks? They're 1,200 degrees, And Toriko's like, he's thinking out there. I don't think he says it out loud. I think he's just thinking in his head. When he actually did his knife move or whatever, it wound up skinning the rat hides of those magma rats that were there, and he kind of tried to strew them out as far as he could along there to kind of use them to hopscotch along. And then he wound up antagonizing Grinpatch and getting him to go and use his move. And while he did that, Toriko went and got out of his, got to his blind spot, which is his peripheral vision. He deduced. I like how they explain all this stuff in the battles. It's actually very cool to me. And then he went, obviously hopped across the rocks and was able to get up behind him. It was just a diversion that he was doing, trying to piss him off, trying to pull him in, taking that opponent that's bigger and stronger than him and has those range attacks, and being able to close the distance without having to go just full force straight at him and take a number of hits, which, who knows if he could even do. So it's tactical. And the thing that I really like about it is, again, kind of going back to the days of myself being the martial arts and everything else, else. There was many different tactics that you could use that were not underhanded at all, but they were tactics that you could use to kind of psych out your opponent, or to, utilize a weakness, a blind spot, or or if one of their legs they weren't as quick as, you would try to attack them on that side because they couldn't get up to defend themselves quickly enough on that particular side of whether it was their weak hand or weak, it's all just basically, it's almost like a chess move. It's all just watching, perceiving, seeing what happens, soaking in the details, and then coming up with a proper counterattack or plan. And I really like how it was done. So anyway, Grinpatch goes, and then he just kind of laughs. He's like, oh, ho, ho, Toriko, and he's like, oh, matter of fact, sorry, our playtime is over though. Oh, the head chef is calling me, and all of a sudden you see, my pet be back, and you see this giant insect-like elephant called a jack elephant. It says capture level 85, right? And now I know what people were talking about, because in the first chapters when we fought 5 and 10 and capture level 20, we were thinking those were big things. And now only 60, 65 chapters, whatever it may be, now we're seeing capture level 85. So I can only imagine what we're going to hit when we're in the 100s and then the 200s, as we get closer to being caught up to current here. But definitely very cool to see that. Nonetheless, though, Grinpatch is like, okay, so I'll see you later, Toriko. We will do this next time. It will be very much fun, And he hops on his little insect, and he's got to get taken off. And Toriko's like, hey, wait, what about my BB corn? And he's like, you cut my straw. He goes, it's an eye for an eye type of thing. We're even now, See you later, Toriko. So then Toriko goes and he has a little conversation with Terry, explaining about how it was great that he stayed out of it like he told him to. And also he's just like, man, I'll bet you that's not even the best that Gourmet Corp has to throw at me. I have to get stronger. So for me, that was his realization too, coming to grips with, like, I'm strong, okay, maybe by some standards, but some of the shit that they're going to go and throw at us is just off the charts from where I'm at right now. So I have to evolve. I have to train. I have to get stronger. Have to learn new moves. Very, very cool stuff. And then just sort of in a creepy, like, 2-page spread thing, we go and we see the BB corn being picked up by this jack elephant, insect thing, and you just see like this sinister looking face that's drawn in, and actually does a very good job of drawing some of these faces just to look kind of evil or disgusting or super angry. And this face is just like the sinister face, and Grinpatch is like, oh yeah, next time we meet, Toriko, I'll suck up you and your pooch too, And I just couldn't think about. I kept thinking of the Wicked Witch of the West, I'll get you and your little doggy too. But anyway, all in all, a very fun chapter, very good chapter in my opinion, and really just is kind of leading us down the rabbit hole, so to speak, down the yellow brick road, to make another Wizard of Oz reference. And you're kind of it's kind of leading you to bigger and better things. So that's what I saw from it. Certainly, my chapter question, though, brothers and sisters, is what are your thoughts on Grinpatch? Obviously, he introduces himself as he leaves. He introduces himself and he says, "I be Grinpatch," and he says, "Vice Chef of the Gourmet Corp." Now, am I mistaken in thinking I thought that Starjan was the vice chef of Gourmet Corp? Is it kind of like in big companies, there's a president, but then there's like 20 vice presidents, vice president of marketing, vice president of, I mean, is it the same type of thing, Grinpatch is the vice president of disgusting, like, regurgitating shit, and Starjan's like the vice president of, like, looking cool, flying on a fucking dragon, or what, So, actually, that's what I would like to know as well. I mean, with thoughts on Grinpatch, and then also, too, am I mistaken, and, if you could clear that up for me, am I mistaken in thinking that he has the same title as Starjan did? Again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's the vice president of Gourmet Corp is Starjan, but I thought he was introduced as the vice chef back in the Regal Mammoth arc. So nonetheless, let me know what your thoughts are and the answer to any of those questions in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching you all in the next one, nation. Well, if you have an extra minute, go on and follow me over on Twitter, Facebook, or even my second channel.